Hello, Carl.
Hi, Rita. Hi, Naima.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Elissa, do you see Tony trying to get in? I know he's had a little struggle.
Now I know he did call me and I resent him the link. I resent it to everyone actually, and I don't see him.
Does that look like, can you guys see that okay? Is that clear?
What, the clock?
The clock, yeah.
Yeah, we can see it. Can't
Yes.
see you, but we
We
can
can't
see
see
the
you,
clock.
but we can't see
Yeah.
you.
That's okay. Oh, no, I look like.
There is a little bit of reflection.
Oh yeah, you guys see, oh, you see you guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Maybe tilt down a little bit.
Oh, not stopping.
You have to, Andrea, you have to sit on some pillows so we can.
Yeah. All right. I guess this will have to do. Okay.
So Barbara Graves Poller is trying to get in. If we could just give her a minute.
Sure. And we're still missing Tony, right?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start in a couple minutes.
That like 5 minutes, Andrea?
Hopefully not. Hopefully 2 minutes.
Okay. I will stay.
Andrew, you have an eerie orange glow coming up. You look like kind of Halloween with the flashlight underneath the chin.
Just some visual effects tonight.
The cat filter on you looks great too. There, that's good.
Okay. We are just missing Tony.
I'm talking to Tony right now, so he just can't get in. So we're just gonna give him a couple minutes and figure this out. So thank you. All right, Elisa, he should be entering now. If you could.
Yep, I see him.
All right, great. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome, Tony.
I don't get that email through my computer when it's sent there. I don't have it. I don't have the Ward 6, the city of Kingston lined up with my computer at home. I only get it on my phone.
Oh, problem solved. We're all good. All right, we are all here, so I am calling this meeting to order at 7:37 p.m. on February 10th, 2022, as a follow-up from Monday and as a follow-up from last Tuesday. May I please have roll call?
Alderman Hill,
Here,
Alderman Frankel,
Here.
Alderman Scott Childress,
Here.
Alderman Worthington,
Here.
Alderman Mohammed,
Here.
Alderman Davis,
Here,
Alderman Oliveri,
Here.
Alderman Shabbat,
here.
Alderman Hirsch.
here.
We have a quorum. On February 1st, when we began this meeting, there was a motion to dispense with the minutes of the previous meeting and approve same. It was adopted 9-0. There was also a motion to dispense with the general bills at the same meeting and was adopted 9-0. So now we're going to enter into the public speaking portion of the meeting. If you have not signed up to speak and you would like to, you could put in the chat message. Just please be aware that while we're doing this, we will not be responding to chats, but we will keep an eye on who wants to sign up. If there's any additional people, just put your name in the chat. We just won't be able to answer questions. We have allotted 30 minutes for public speaking. Speakers will have 3 minutes. I will put the clock in front of me so you'll see. If there are remaining speakers after 30 minutes, I will call for a motion from the council to extend the period for another 30 minutes. Speakers, please direct your comments to the chair, as council members cannot engage in debate during this time. Please state your name and address on the record before you address the council. There shall be no distractions when a speaker is addressing the council. The Common Council has also received written comments for their consideration, and they can be found on the city's website under tonight's agenda. Can I have the first speaker, please?
Sarah Wank.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
I'm not sure if you can see me, but
We won't be able to see you, but we could hear
Oh.
you.
okay, that's hi, I'm Sarah Wank. I live in Kingston. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I strongly urge you to vote against the abandonment of Fair Street Extension, but that's not what I want to talk about tonight. At last week's caucus meeting, important questions were raised about whether there is or could be a formal written agreement with Brad Jordan about the affordable housing in the Kingstonian. No one on the council could confirm that there is anything in writing. They said that people should talk to and trust the developer and that they hope Kingston residents will have access to the affordable units. As a resident, I'd like assurances that the promises made to the community are in writing and enforceable. But when I wrote to my alderman, Rennie Scott Childress, and the council president about this, I received no response. Why? Because I, along with several other citizens, signed an affidavit asking whether an employee of the Kingstonian's developer should recuse himself from voting on the project. Not a threat, not a demand, simply a question, which we felt deserved an answer more comprehensive than Corporation Counsel said he didn't have to. I was told that none of our questions, not about the January public hearing, not about the Kingstonian, not apparently about anything, would be answered unless they were submitted by a lawyer. There is no legal reason for this. My questions had nothing to do with the recusal. It seems we are being silenced for our opposition to this project. There have been recent calls for civility in our politics, and while I wish for that as well, I wonder where this should begin. When former Assistant Corporation Counsel Dan Gartenstein created a fake Facebook account and harassed opponents of the Kingstonian, there was no response from the city to numerous queries about his behavior, not very civil. When former Alderman Tollerman falsely accused citizen advocates of being financially connected to Neil Bender and thereby, quote, holding a gun to our city, unquote, he never even apologized. And where is the civility when citizens are silenced for asking a simple and reasonable question about an obvious conflict of interest? I'm not a threat to the city. City government should be welcoming people like me, engaged, concerned citizens who want to be involved in fair, transparent processes, who volunteer our time and energy to try to make our city a better place. But instead, we are silenced, ignored, and treated like enemies. Not much civility there, and that leads to a lack of trust. Trust is not a talking point, it is earned. How in this years-long process has the city earned the trust of its citizens? Where is the transparency around the decisions that have been made? Where is the inclusion and consideration that would make the people of Kingston feel they are a part of this project that is costing us so much and giving us back so little? And please don't say parking. We all know there won't be any real increase in available parking. If you want to be trusted, trust the public. If you want civility in politics, do your part to keep things civil. You don't work for the mayor, the council president, or the corporation council. You work for the voters and citizens of our city. Listen to us, respond to us, include us. That's why we elected you. And thank you for your time.
Next speaker, please.
Lynn Woods.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Lynn.
Okay, so my name is Lynn Woods and I reside at 68 Pine Street. And I am here to talk about the Franklin Street Complete Streets Plan and the pending resolution by the Common Council to declare it a Type 2 action under SECRA. The preliminary plan for the Franklin Street Complete Streets project, which was presented at a public meeting at the Hodge Center last October, showed the destruction of all 14 existing trees, the removal of historic bluestone sidewalks, and the removal of hedges, fences, and other landscape features on adjoining private properties to make way for new 5-foot wide concrete sidewalks. It also included the planting of new trees, which is much needed. However, according to Kingston's 2018 tree inventory, preserving the city's existing trees should be a priority. Gregory Krupp, the project manager, sent me an email a few days ago and in response to my questions noted that the city now plans to preserve 6 of these existing trees, as well as the block of bluestone sidewalk between Pine and Clinton, which is outside the Fair Street Historic District. The block between Pine and Fair is in the district, therefore its bluestone sidewalks must be preserved. He also indicated he is working with property owners on the planned removals of their landscaping features. I am glad the city is responding to the public feedback collected last fall that advocated for bluestone sidewalk and tree preservation and appreciate Mr. Krupp's efforts. However, until the final plan is released, we can't be sure these changes will be implemented. Before the Common Council can vote on the resolution, it seems to me it needs to review the final plan. And even with the improvements Mr. Krupp mentioned, there are concerns, specifically concerning the 20-foot right-of-way. The city's 2018 grant application to the DEC, which is funding the project, describes the project as, quote, creating a sustainable, attractive, and climate-friendly streetscape, unquote. It also cites the installation of a new white picket fence in front of the Hodge Center as evidence of the street's revitalization. How ironic then that the project's right-of-way encroachment summary lists that fence as one of many that conflict with the proposed complete streets design. Other items include hedges as high as 8 to 15 feet tall, shrubs, fences, including a historic wrought iron one, flower beds, and gardens. The city will not be replanting or replacing in kind these features. It is up to property owners to do so, a financial hardship given that mature shrubs and hedge cost hundreds of dollars. Would this callous treatment of tax-paying property owners be possible? This area was not in a census tract with the city's highest poverty rates. The city's 2018 tree inventory states, quote, trees, unlike other infrastructure, perform better and gain value over time. Older, more mature trees provide the most benefit to the community. The city must promote tree preservation and proactive tree care to assure older trees survive as long as possible, unquote. Researchers have determined that most tree species remove significant amounts of CO2 only after they reach 50 years of age.
Time is up, Lynn.
My time is up?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't even get to half the things. Can I submit my written comments to the council? Can I submit these like by mail or drop them in a mailbox somewhere?
could bring them to City Hall. There's a Dropbox outside City Hall.
Okay, I will do that. And I would appreciate it if people could read them because I only got halfway through my comments. Sorry about
Alright.
that.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. Next speaker, please.
Anthony Marmo.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in favor of the Kingstonian again. My name is Tony Marmo. I own property at 214 West Chestnut Street and a business at 231 Clinton Avenue. My wife and I live in Ulster Park. I've lived and worked in Ulster County and the Kingston area since 1980 when I took a job at the Kingston Hospital. Since then, I've seen developers try to bring projects to Kingston that were inappropriate and were appropriately rejected. And those that were appropriate but protracted, and the developers ultimately pulled out despite spending substantial money in the process. The Kingstonian has been right from the start because local developers who are community stalwarts developed it, worked with local government and the community. They made the changes that make it a project that most of us can be proud of and one that will reap benefits to the local businesses and residents for decades to come. Most of the people that are opposed to the Kingstonian have not been here since 1980. They have not lived through IBM leaving, the uptown area decline, the decline of property values, and the general economic malaise in the greater Kingston area. Now property values have skyrocketed. The mall in the town of Ulster has declined, and the uptown area is once again an area that is active, attractive, and buzzing. The approval of the Kingstonian will send a message that Kingston and Ulster County are open for appropriate economic development, and that buying properties and keeping them vacant is not a vision for the long-term success of our city. By now, the Common Council knows who is in favor of the Kingstonian and who is not, who has supported this community in good times and in bad, and who just moved in 2 years ago and doesn't have a vision for our city. The Kingstonian developers do have a vision where all people have a chance to prosper, where small businesses can benefit from a large-scale project like the Kingstonian, and that will create spin-off business, which will benefit people all along the economic and social continuum. Through the many meetings and reviews that have occurred on the Kingstonian, you have heard testimonies from several people in favor and some opposed. In my opinion, a large majority of your constituents are in favor of this project. Please listen to their voices. Please vote in favor of the Kingstonian tonight. We may never get another chance like this one to make a difference in our community again. Please help create an optimism that we really have not seen since 1994 when IBM left. Thank you for this, your service to our city.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Ron Woods.
Hi, Ron, you there?
You may need to tell him how to unmute his phone.
What is it, star?
*6.
Ron, if you could press *6 on your phone. There you go. You there?
Am I ready?
Yes. Yep, you're all
Okay.
set. 3 minutes.
Okay, this is Ron Woods, 15 Len Court, a lifetime Kingstonian. As a senior resident of Kingston, I strongly favor the Kingstonian project. As an elderly resident, I remember uptown Kingston from the 1940s to the present. It was a wonderful place for Kingstonians to shop and visit. Tourists too. It was a beehive activity. Bear Street Extension was very, very busy. Uptown Kingston became depressed from the 1960s until the present. The Kingstonian will help Uptown Kingston to return to its splendor and glory of past years. A great majority of Kingston residents, as proven by the public hearing at George Washington School, want the entire Kingston project to proceed. The voters of Kingston have spoken. At that hearing was overwhelming support for the Kingstonian. probably 7, 8 to 1 for the Kingstonian. I would say through the leadership of the distinguished Common Council, the construction of the Kingstonian project will be one of the greatest achievements of our proud city. Maybe the greatest achievements in the history of our proud city. Kingston's the third largest, oldest city in New York State. We should not listen to disparaging and unfair remarks by New York City and regional detractors. They're simply trying to confuse us by leaving out important information about the project. They know very, very little about Kingston. Also, the Common Council has voted for the rejuvenation of Dietz Memorial Stadium, which will help us to attract major sports events to Uptown Kingston and the Kingstonian. We are all very, very proud of Kingston. Kingston is the colonial city. It's the gateway to the Catskills, first capital of New York State. Thank you, Kingston.
Thank you all. Next speaker, please.
Dan A. House.
Hi, good evening, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Dan A. House. I live at 24 Heritage Court here in Kingston. On behalf of the development team, tonight I want to thank the Common Council for your deliberation, some of you over the past 4 years and some of you over the past couple of months, which I'm sure felt like 4 years. This is, as you know, a critically important project and complex project for the city of Kingston. And I want to acknowledge the deliberate and transparent process that this city council has undertaken to review the complexities, and I should say, to add some significant value to the project relative to the community and to its citizens and its businesses. As you know, and you've heard tonight, there have been ample opportunity for the public to weigh in on this project, to share their concerns and their supports and their ideas. By my count, I have about 7 or 8 different public hearings, and 2 of which that preceded this meeting tonight. In those public hearings and through written comment, you've heard overwhelming support from the residents and the businesses of Kingston. You could have heard more of that same support tonight, but tonight is about deliberation and voting, not about public hearings. So I will end by saying thank you for working with us and hearing us through this process. And we look forward to moving this project forward on behalf of the people and businesses of the city of Kingston. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Aisha Tyler.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Welcome. Go ahead.
You know what, maybe I'm on 2 different devices. That might not help. All right, so I'm gonna just make my statement really quick and not take up too much time. My name is Aisha Tyler. I'm a congregant at Amy Zion Church. I'm also the volunteer interim secretary for Reverend Mary Bruce. And I'm speaking on the resolution 28, which is the Franklin Complete Streets project. I know that before you're looking at a decision between a type 2 secret and a type 1. This is actually not a type 2. The project's vicinity and the fact that it's interacting with several historic resources, including the church itself, but also Fair Street Historic District and the library, and also the Petit House. That makes it a type 1. And so it's not a type 2. There are environmental factors here that basically make it subject to review. And secondary to that, I would say that I do believe that the process in terms of outreach could have been a little bit more better and more inclusive. And projects in general, when they have more input and more outreach, there's actually more buy-in. And that's not only for this project, but for others. And so making it projects as inclusive as they can be actually means that people will kind of support them more, as opposed to becoming angry and yelling and whatnot. So those are my comments, and have a blessed night.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
EJ Michael.
He also might have to know that he has to do that *6 or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, here she is. I just
Hi, I'm sorry. Something happened anyway.
Oh.
Carry on.
All right, you're all set.
Thanks. Good evening. I represent a group of property owners on Franklin Street, some of whom will be speaking tonight. We live on different blocks and some of us are new to Kingston and are new owners. We are here to implore you to table Resolution 28 and send it back to the committee for further review. In the statement we submitted last week to the caucus and sent to you again today, we believe there is ample cause to review the C-Corp classification presented by the city engineer, which is the basis for this resolution, and which has no documentation for that recommendation. At a minimum, the statement and the speakers tonight should raise doubt about Resolution 28, and we implore you to table it. Since learning of this project last fall, I have been frustrated, amazed, and honestly appalled at times. I sought out residents of Franklin Street to join together to find a way to have the required ADA compliant sidewalks and preserve the magnificent trees and the historically important bluestone on all of Franklin. There are major issues with this project. This resolution, the discrepancy between the grant description and the actual reality of this project, the continued lack of just transparency and continued lack of community involvement. For example, the Public Advisory Committee has not met since August of 2020, from what we can find out. I would like to commend Greg for his availability, whether he tells me things I want to hear or not. However, this council's members have not been so responsive in replying to requests from many of us to discuss this project. There is not enough time to discuss more in the short time allocated tonight, or to talk about the folly of creating a plan for Franklin and Henry Streets without any input from the Kingston Forward rezoning consultants. I leave you with this challenge. I challenge each of you to contact me and the other speakers tonight to find out about our experience with this project. You may or may not be surprised by what you hear. We all look forward to speaking with you, our representatives. Thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
David Wesley.
David, you might need to unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Sorry about it. I think I just got it. Am I good?
Yep, you're here. All right, I'm gonna press the
Awesome.
timer. Go ahead.
I also hope that you table the resolution on Franklin Street that would approve the negative declaration to give the council adequate time to review the matter. Aspects of this project suggest to me that it should receive a type 1 determination. I want to touch on a couple of effects that trigger secret type 1 determinations that are present on Franklin Street. Projects affecting resources of archaeological, historic, or aesthetic significance, 100 to 150-year-old historic bluestone features, including sidewalks, curbs, both lining street and in front of houses, and several posts. impairment of community character, narrowing front lawns, placing houses closer to sidewalk, removal of trees and historic features, not to mention the removal of trees and the threat to bats. I want to make reference to the Midtown West Intensive Level Cultural Resources Survey of 2003. I believe there's a copy available in the planning office. It was commissioned by the city of Kingston and funded with a grant from New York State's Historic Preservation Office. This survey identified 15 properties on Franklin Street for inclusion as historically significant, most from the 1870s and 1880s. Among the criteria for selecting the properties that were highlighted in the survey is, I quote, integrity of setting, the effect of changes which have occurred to the setting of a property, including relocation of public rights of way, loss of character defining historic vegetation and landscapes, etc. This project seems to affect all of the above. Finally, I'm also concerned about the very limited public involvement in this project. I live on Franklin Street and have not received a single piece of correspondence regarding the project. I spoke with the consultants at the October meeting at the Hodge and informed them that I have historic material and that could be affected or removed by the project, and I have received no follow-up. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Kate Stanatakis. I don't see her on. If you're on, Kate, with a phone call, I don't know your phone number. So Andrea, if you want to give her the your cell phone number to text to you, so I know who to unmute.
Sure. My number is 914-466-8092. Oh, I just got oh, that's somebody else. Again, my number is 914-466-8092. If you called in and didn't give the clerk your phone number, we don't know where you are, so you could just text that number and we'll come back and say the name. So Lisa, can you move on to the next speaker? But we'll come back to Kate. Again, the number is 914-466-8092. Next speaker, please.
Jim Shaughnessy.
Can you hear me now? I think I just unmuted.
Yep, we hear you, Jim.
Okay, thank you. Dear council members, President Schott, thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I live at, my name is James Shaughnessy. I live at 11 Delta Place. I'm speaking for myself tonight. I'm opposed to the partial abandonment of Fair Street Extension. On Tuesday at 4:30 p.m., I was leaving Kingston Plaza from the Hanford side. There was a line of cars from Pearl Street to Schwank Drive. Where will the line end if Fair Street Extension is not an alternate route off Schwank Drive? I'm also opposed to the pilot for the Kingstonian. Taking money from children's education to pay for a parking garage is not the proper thing to do. I congratulate Scott Dutton for the improvements that he made to the design of the project. But when you put lipstick on a pig, you still have a pig. There have been a lot of lies told about the DRI initiative and the Kingstonian. I heard a claim that the January 12th public hearing couldn't be hybrid or remote because GW doesn't have enough bandwidth. That came from a reporter who told me that he was told that by a member of Common Council. That is absurd. There's enough bandwidth at GW to do remote learning with 350 students when the school was closed to in-person hearing, to in-person learning over parts of the last 2 years. In closing, I wish the Common Council would grow some backbone and ask tough questions to the mayor and the developers when these types of proposals come before you. It seems that Common Council has a platform similar to the Republican 2020 platform, quote, give Brad Jordan and the mayor anything they want, end quote. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Daryl Snyder.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Cheryl Schneider. I live at 1119 Creek Locks Road in Bloomington, New York, and I'm in the Kingston Consolidated School District, Kingston City School District. And Mr. Marmo, I've been there for over 23 years, but I first came to this area in '79. So I want to speak to the misinformation and disinformation that has continually been advanced by the developers and their supporters. No, it's not true. We're outsiders, unless you think that if our grandfathers weren't buried here, we don't get a voice in this area. That's preposterous. The people, when the people have spoken, when there have been elections that have been seen as referendums on the Kingstonian, the people have spoken out quite vocally, and the people who tried to get on the school board got voted down, and Mr. Donaldson got replaced. This will continue to happen. It's a lie. They keep lying. They keep misrepresenting. They keep wanting it to look like everybody who's against the Kingstonian was somehow paid. No, I am also with Mr. Shaughnessy. I am against taking school kids' money so that rich men can make even more money. This is a ridiculous project. I lived in a building that was a third the size in New York City. In Manhattan, it was oversized for Hell's Kitchen. You have no idea what you're inviting in. And it's 2 big cement boxes with windows on it. It's pretty disgusting, actually. It destroys the historic value of Uptown. And I just want to say about all these assurances that the new folks have gotten from Mr. Jordan in business, and especially on a project that's 60 million about, you don't take assurances, you get things in writing and they get signed. So if you're going to vote in favor of the abandonment of Fair Street extension based upon some assurances, please postpone that vote and get all those promises that you talked about in the previous, in your caucus several weeks ago. Get all of those in writing first, and then maybe we can come back and talk about it. The use of abandonment is a trick. Streets don't get abandoned unless they're completely out of disrepair. They're using it as a trick so they don't have to go through the proper legal and just mechanisms to give up the public purse to private enterprise. This is a travesty. Again, I am completely opposed to it. Thank you.
Thank you. We have reached our 30-minute window, but we do have 4 more speakers signed up. So I am calling for a motion to extend for another 30-minute window. Motion.
I move that we extend our public speaking for another 30 minutes to cover the currently waiting speakers.
Motion
second
by
that.
Rita Childress, second by Rita Worthington. All in favor? I just need to see thumbs. Opposed? All right, we passes 9-0. We are entering into another 30-minute window of public speaking. Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Scott Denny.
Scott, just unmute yourself.
Andrew, your clock is at 0 if that matters.
Hello.
Thank you. All right, Scott, you're all set. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Good evening, Madam President, and good evening to all the members of the Common Council. I'm actually going to be very brief in the topic of the Kingstonian project, as I did email each and every council member. And I was pretty clear as to what my position was there. But I would like to just reiterate, as far as the one concern I greatly have, I'm reasonably sure and feel pretty confident that you guys are going to go ahead and pass this. My biggest concern is that at the last caucus meeting, that Alderwoman Rita Worthington made the statement that, Mr. Jordan gave his word and she trusts his word and so forth and so on. I will agree with Cheryl that anything in a project of this size and this magnitude really absolutely needs to be put in writing. You can't take it at face value or somebody's word, regardless of the person. I'm not questioning his personal integrity in any way, but it does need to be put in writing. and notarized properly and make it a legal document that's binding for, at that moment and into the future. That said, I'll leave the Kingstonian alone. What I do want to make reference to this point is what maybe stating a question here that as to what the council is considering doing with regard to Mayor Steve Doble and his actions that he took during this most horrific storm that we just had leaving Kingston. I understand that everybody's entitled to vacation, whether planned, not planned, whatever, it's irrelevant. My point is that he left, and the major issue here is leaving is not even so much the matter. The matter is that he is in violation of the city charter, and he did not even notify President Schott of his absence. And basically, from what I understand is, and if I'm wrong, I'll be corrected. He sent out notification to department managers that his secretary, Roy, was basically in charge of the city and would communicate with him directly. It's a violation. This common council needs to somehow make sure that that never happens again. This mayor seems to just do whatever he wants when he wants, and somehow for your constituents, each and every one of you, it's up to you to stop this mayor from just running willy-nilly and just doing whatever he feels like doing. And that's where we're at right now. And I don't think there's anybody in the room right now that can dispute that. Again, and I just think at the end of the day, whatever happens here is going to happen. And I think at the end of the day, somehow we have to find unity. This has been very divisive, and hopefully we are all Kingstonians, and we need to bring some closure to this one way or another. And hopefully, however it goes, it works out for the best. I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Next speaker.
Andrew Lessick.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Andrew Lessig with the law firm Lewis and Greer in Poughkeepsie, New York, speaking to you here on behalf of William Gottlieb Realty tonight. I've appeared in front of you all before, and I'm appearing again, obviously, on the same topic, the abandonment of Fair Street Extension in order to enable the construction of the Kingstonian project. I submitted written testimony, and I ask you all to take a look at it. It's 3 pages long, and I address a lot of the whereas clauses in the resolution that you'll be voting on tonight. There's about 2 or 3 pages of whereas clauses that address, frankly, a lot of legal arguments we've made up until this point, and I address, frankly, why some of them are misleading or inaccurate or lead to inaccurate assumptions, perhaps by reader. One thing I want to point out tonight, since I know my time is limited, is just frankly the name of the resolution. It's a resolution of the Common Council authorizing the abandonment of Fair Street Extension, authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents related to it. We don't have those documents. You haven't seen those documents, and I haven't seen those documents. You're being asked tonight to give the mayor a blank check to sign any and all documents. Even if you're in favor of this project, even if you're in favor of abandoning the road, why don't we have the documents now? Why doesn't this body actually pass on those documents? For the new Common Council members, by voting on this in favor of it tonight, you'll be triggering Resolution 215, passed by this body several months ago, which already enables, as soon as the road is abandoned, the mayor to sign away any and all rights the city has as to the street. The conveyance of easements is already been granted, subject to the abandonment of the road, which you're voting on tonight. Again, nobody has seen the documents conveying those easements. Nobody knows what those documents entail. It's already been approved without this body knowing what is being approved. Even if you're in favor of this resolution, even if you're in favor of this project, why don't we ask the mayor to come up with those documents first, and this body can pass on those documents without just simply giving the mayor carte blanche to sign any and all documents he wishes to affect the outcome that he's stated that he wants. I thank you all for your time. I ask you all to think this through. One more thing, obviously, people have already mentioned it, the Common Council caucus meeting last week. members of this body said they were given assurances about the fair, the affordable housing being available to Kingston residents and so on and so forth. After this is voted on tonight, this council has no more leverage. If you want to see improvements to this project, you've got to get them now before you give away your last bit of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Alana Ross.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Alana. Yes,
So-
we can hear you. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so there have been rigged hearings, but every time there's been a popular vote on Team Kingstonian has lost, contrary to the usual balderdash that we heard tonight from the usual supporters of Team Kingstonian and the paid supporters from Team Kingstonian. So no, the community does not trust Brad Jordan, but you trust his word instead of asking to see the contract, the binding contract between the city and Jordan. I'm not talking about affordable housing. I'm talking about the binding contract between the city and Brad Jordan that was to have been signed as required in the assignment from the first architect to Jordan. Do you even know about this binding contract? I never saw one, but I did see the assignment and I know it's in there. So that doesn't mean there isn't a contract, but I can't find it. And is it possible that the city doesn't want us to see that contract, even if it exists, because there are more things they don't want us to know about, because we'd be shocked, just like we were shocked when we found out about the tax breaks and the pilot, the grants, the way the DRI was scammed, the way the opportunity zone is being scammed. So what happens if there is a fire? What happens if the structure has to be refreshed? That's one of Bonura's euphemisms for bad construction. He said the place would have to be refreshed in 10 years. Did you even know about that? Did you even ask what it meant? What if the part that needs to be refreshed lies within the street bed? What if the driveway to the garage or the retail plaza above, it's damaged because the builders cut corners with stormwater, sewage, infrastructure, encapsulating the garage or whatever, What if it has to be dismantled for any reason? Who pays for that? Investors get the benefits, but the people pay the price? Or will you just cut services? Opportunity zones have to be exited by 2047. What happens then, or if they sell before? Is that in the contract? Well, I see some of you are smiling, really. Your obligation was to look at these questions and to report to your constituents. Your obligation was to look at the objections. Instead, you wrote that you couldn't take us seriously, but we were the ones who asked the serious questions, just like I'm asking right now. What is in the contract that was supposed to have been signed between Brad Jordan and the city? Where is that contract? And why did you dismiss our questions? Why did you sweep them under the rug? The question is rhetorical, because if you had investigated, you would have known, you would have had to face that this boondoggle for what it is, a ploy to put money in crony pockets based on fake benefits and bogus numbers that you did everything you could to avoid examining. You didn't do the tough job of checking the facts. Instead, you trust that you can stay in contact with him. Instead of doing the hard work of scrutinizing the way you should have, you looked away. You looked away, anything to avoid the work you should have done, which is to explore the points that the objectors raised. You've seen Jordan's behavior with the floodplain, with Westbrook Lane, and yet you've been as mindless and loyal as the Trumplicans have been to Donald Trump. Jordan pulled a fast one and Noble lied, but I blame you for making decisions based on personal friendship or self-interest and for going along with this boondoggle. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Next speaker, please.
That is the end of the speakers. I don't see Kate on here.
Oh yeah, I had somebody email her, but haven't heard back. So hopefully she could send in some comments to the council. We are now going to close our public speaking portion of the meeting. We now enter into claims and communications. Hearing no discussion, they will be on file in the clerk's office. Can I get a motion to dispense with the second reading of the general bills and pay same? Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Tony Davis. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is adopted 9-0. We now enter into the report of committees, starting with resolution number 21, please.
Resolution 21 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting a 2021 transfer in the Parks and Recreation Department in the amount of $8,114.26 to reconcile department accounts.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 22, please.
Resolution 22 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program, aid eligible costs of transportation federal aid project, and appropriating additional funds for the Henry Street Safe Routes to School project.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 23, please.
Resolution 23 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing an amendment to increase the bond ordinance of the Henry Street Safe Routes to School project by the sum of $886,151 for construction and construction inspection costs.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 24, which is a bond ordinance. So I'll ask for a long roll, please.
Resolution 24 of 2022, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of additional $886,151 in bonds of the City of Kingston, Ulster County, New York, to pay costs and connections in connection with the Henry Street pedestrian improvement projects in and for said city. Alderman Hill. This is a long roll, so I will call each name.
So you just say yes or no, one at a time.
Yes.
There you go.
Alderman Frankel,
Yes.
Alderman Scott Childress,
Yes.
Alderman Worthington,
Yes.
Alderman Mohammed,
Yeah.
Alderman Davis,
Yes.
Alderman Oliveri,
Yes.
Alderman Shabbat,
Yes.
Alderman Hirsch.
Michelle, can you say that again? We just didn't catch you. I saw you unmute, but
Yes.
thank you. Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution number 25, please.
Resolution 25 of 2022, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the execution of payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot agreement by and among the City of Kingston Stuyvesant Apartment Owners, LLC, and Stuyvesant Apartments Housing Development Fund Company, Incorporated.
President Shaw, due to my association with the Kingston Housing Authority as a member of the board of directors there, I will be recusing myself from any discussion or vote on this particular issue.
Okay, thank you, Rennie. On the question? Alderman Oliveri?
Thank you, Madam President. I must start out by saying the residents of Stuyvesant deserve to have their apartments upgraded, brought to current code, and most importantly, safe to live in. I must also point out that the Kingston Housing Authority serves at the pleasure of its residents and the residents of Kingston. That being said, something seems very off about this project. The costs are not adding up, and the information that I requested from the KHA was still not received as of the Monday before the initial meeting. That Tuesday, I was informed that what I requested was privileged and confidential. I have spoken to individuals in the banking and housing remediation industries, and they agree my questions and concerns are valid. Why are the prices quoted for this project so astronomically high? Why, after Mountco stated in their RFQ they should be able to do the project utilizing Section 518A tax program instead of a pilot. Are we voting in favor of one? Why, after multiple attempts to gather information on other RFQ proposals, have I not gotten a response and now withholding due to privileged information? Isn't the KHA a branch of the same government I serve? There's a saying that if something is too good to be true, it probably is. The residents of Kingston Housing Authority units deserve a more detailed explanation of what they are getting in return for this. At a time where housing is such a priority, we are lacking due diligence. For that reason, my vote will be to refer this back to committee. Otherwise, I will be a no.
Are you making a motion to refer this back to committee?
I didn't hear you, Andrea. I'm sorry.
Are you making a motion to refer this back to, send this back to committee?
If I can, yes.
Yes, you just say, I make a motion to refer this back to committee.
I make a motion to refer this back to committee.
Is there a second by Michelle Hirsch? Before I take the vote, can we discuss? Or is there anything on this question to send it? This is just to send it back to committee. Anybody have anything before I call for the vote? All right, so I'm going to call for the vote. This is to send this back to committee. If you could all make sure that your thumbs are up and stay up. So I will call for the vote to send this back to committee. All in favor? All right, so that is Rita Worthington, Michael Olivieri, Steve Shabbat, Carl Frankel, Barbara Hill, and Michelle Hirsch. That is 6 votes to send this back to committee. So that is 6-2. We will send this back to committee. I did receive a text that I may have made a mistake on the vote for resolution 23. I said it was adopted 9-0. Did anybody vote no for that resolution? It might have just been that the thumb wasn't obvious on YouTube. So if you could just make sure everybody sees some of this. So there was no vote. There was no vote for 23, correct? Okay. All right, so that resolution did pass 9-0. Thank you. Resolution 25 is moved back to committee, and now we're moving to resolution 26.
Resolution 26 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending the city's fee schedule referenced in Administrative Code 217-1 to reflect the fees adopted pursuant to Resolution 160 of 2021 anti-idling legislation.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Thank you. Moving to resolution 27, please.
Resolution 27 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending the fee schedule to reflect fines and fees associated with illegal use of off-road vehicles.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I will call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 9-0. Moving to resolution 28, please.
Resolution 28 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, requesting issuance of a negative declaration in connection with the Franklin Street Complete Streets project in the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the seeker process pursuant to 6 NYCRR Part 617.
On the question, Alderwoman Mohammed.
Thank you, Madam President. I feel that there are open-ended questions in regards to the community input. And after receiving concerns from our neighbors, I would like the opportunity to have more time to look into these concerns. Therefore, I'm making a motion to send resolution 28 back to committee in order for us to feel more comfortable with the vote.
There is a motion on the floor to send this resolution back to committee. Is there a second? The second by Tony Davis. Discussion to send this back to committee. Alderman Rennie Scott Childress. This is for discussion, not a vote. right?
Yes.
So Alderman Rennie Scott Childress and then Michelle Hirsch, Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
I understand that members of the community there are concerned about the communications from this administration. We've seen problems before in this regard, and this is not always the easiest thing either for these kinds of communications. So I feel for their concerns. At the same time, the secret process is not something that is for this particular aspect of a project like this. There are many other avenues for communicating, discussing this with the city. And so my concern here is that we are, to a degree, misusing the secret process. On the other hand, because it's clear that many residents feel that this has not been adequately discussed with them by the city, that they feel surprised by this, I will be voting in favor of sending this back to committee because it clearly needs to be discussed further between the city, between the current administration and the residents of the street.
Thank you. Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm in favor of moving this resolution back to committee, as I do not believe that the city should be undertaking seeker until all of the encroachments are resolved. Thank you.
Alderman Steve Shabbat.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I'm in favor of sending this back also. I've gotten calls, that's not even close to my ward, but I've gotten calls about it. There seems to be a lot of questions by the residents there, and you know, they're looking for some answers. I really don't have a problem with sending it back. I think it would be good. You know, I'd like to see the residents involved a little bit more.
Anybody else on the motion to send this back to committee? Alderwoman Barbara Hill and then Alderwoman Rita Worthington.
Hi, Alderwoman Barbara Hill. Yeah, I've read all the comments by residents in that area. I represent the council, I guess that's the way to say it, on the Complete Streets Commission or advisory. And was on that call the other day, and I believe residents there are very well spoken and very concerned, and I'm voting to send it back to committee.
Thank you. Alderwoman Rita Worthington, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I too will be in favor of sending this back to committee. As everyone has said, I've also received many calls and emails about the transparency of this project. I do, however, want to say that us sending it back to committee does not negate what our city engineer has done. It has nothing to do with what his findings were. This all has to do with what the residents of Kingston, especially in wards 4 and 5, have written to us and have said to us that they don't feel like they have been properly informed and that they have not been engaged the way that they should be engaged. So this is the reason why I'll be in favor of sending it back.
Thank you. Anybody else on the question of sending it back to committee? Hearing no more discussion, we have a motion by Alderwoman Mohammed and a second by Alderman Davis. I'm calling for the vote to send this back to committee. Thumbs up nice and high, please. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is adopted 9-0. We will be sending this one back to committee as well. Moving to resolution number 29, please.
Resolution 29 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, authorizing the partial abandonment of Fair Street Extension and authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents related to the partial abandonment of Fair Street Extension.
On the question, I have Alderwoman Rita Worthington and then Alderman Tony Davis and then Michael Olivieri and then Carl Frankel. So Rita?
Thank you, Madam President. Again, first I want to just thank the public and the citizens of Kingston for their engagement in this and their interest in this. We've heard many comments regarding this process, and has been very extensive. When this project first began nearly 4 years ago, I was there at the inception, And I want to say I recently read somewhere that vote yes on this Kingstonian to abandon the Fair Street extension. If Rita Worthington votes yes on that, it will be political suicide because the people in her ward do not want it. And as I previously mentioned, I was on this process from the beginning. Not many people in my ward, I can't say for the other wards, but not many people in my ward have even discussed with me about the abandonment of the Fair Street extension. What they have discussed with me is that they wanted affordable housing and that they wanted discount on fees. And so what we did was we went back to the developers and we said, we want the affordable housing, and developers gave it to us. We said we wanted a discount on the parking fees, and they gave it to us. And not only did we get those items, they also are giving us 277 public parking spaces. They're giving us a public pedestrian plaza, which will be maintained at the expense of the developers. They're also giving us public bathrooms, which will be maintained at the expense of the developers. They're also giving us a compliant pedestrian bridge, which will be maintained at the expense of the developers. And I appreciate Mr. Denny's comments about this should be in writing. I too agree with that. It should be in writing, and that's what we're basing everything that I'm saying on, that it will be an agreement that is put in writing. And with regard to the abandonment of the Fair Street extension, I'm hearing that the city is giving it away, but I want to say, no, that is not the case, because from what I understand, when you give something away, you don't expect anything back. And so this is not a giveaway. We are expecting them to do their part as they promised to do. And I will follow up on that and make sure that those things get done. So because of that, I am going to be a yes on this vote. I've had some time to study it and to research it on my own and get my own findings, and I'm satisfied with the vote that I'm going to be given on tonight. And as far as political suicide, the items that were important to my constituents were addressed and they were received. So I'm a yes vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Tony Davis is next, and then on deck is Michael Oliveri.
Well, as has been mentioned, this is going back over 6 years, but we're here only to talk about the partial abandonment of the street. And so I'm going to read this from the MOA. Section 40, Section 6 of Resolution 40 requires a project to provide parking, public parking, a public park, and public restrooms as a condition of property transfer. And whereas Section 8 of Resolution 40 states that the ownership of the transfer of property will revert to the city in the event the developer does not provide aforementioned public amenities as part of the projects. So that's in the MOA, which is in writing. Whereas authorizing conveyance of easement by the city developers for, among other sections, to allow for an ADA compliant. So that's in the MOA written down. Now we go to January 10th, 2022, a letter from here. We are not being asked to sell the street and or transfer public property to private hands. Fair Street extension belongs to our city and always will be. The council already approved the creation of this pedestrian plaza. The council also approved the pilot agreement, which we're not here to vote on today, which requires the developer to maintain a pedestrian plaza, bathrooms, and other public amenities. The proposed resolution does not change the official city map. The developers will bear the cost of maintaining the public, as Rita says, will maintain the cost of maintaining the public amenities. This represents a $3 million net benefit to the city when compliant compared to what we would as a city otherwise receiving tax payments or also bearing in the public parking garage, pedestrian plaza, and other amenities maintains costs ourselves if the city had to do that. So again, the developers are going to take care of all that. So now we go to, let me see, I got a lot of things here. Then we go to the letter dated, I don't even know when this was dated. These are the tactics that we've been hearing. Report, taking Fair Street extensions, taking away lives. As a firefighter for 5 years, I can attest to you, I worked in Uptown. And if 99.9% of when we've gotten calls for Uptown, we come out of the parking lot of the garage of the Uptown parking and we make a right on Frog Street. And then we either make a right or left, depending on which way we're going to respond to a call Uptown. Not at one time that I remember that we made a left out on Frog Street, went on Strength Drive, to go up Fair Street to go to any kind of medical or fire that might be in uptown Kingston. So that was one tactic. Our chief responded, our fire chief responded that he'd seen no issues with Fair Street extension. Again, this was paid by someone who has never been in our city of Kingston, not one time probably, that we're supposed to take the word of this person who has never been in the city of Kingston over our fire chief, who's been a firefighter for probably over 25 plus years. Then that didn't work. That tactic didn't work. So then they went after one of us. They went after one of our aldermen, Steve Chapman. Right? Boom, ethics. He should be off. He should be off. He should be off. The ethics board found nothing. Then the next tactic was stop the vote to protect our community. Right? Without students doing this, there should be no vote. Et cetera, et cetera. We had a public hearing, which the majority of the people who came out of the George Washington School were in favor of this project, in favor of this project. That didn't work. Now they're saying that they want it in writing, et cetera, et cetera. We've gone through this. We've heard, as one of the cities, we probably had 7 to 8 public hearings on this. We've had a lot. There's been more public hearings on this project than probably any other project I've ever been on this council for over 5-6 years. Every time it comes back, from the beginning, the developers change. They came back, they said, yes, we'll put more affordable housing. We'll do the parking. We'll change this. We'll change this. Every time they have come back and compromise with us. Every time. So the last thing is, they talk about today, some speakers, there's a threat against the council if we vote against it, if we vote for it. It's going to be a threat, so a threat for, if we voted for it, we're going to be voted out. So be it. They said, what's the name? Outside. Oh, you're listening to this developer, et cetera, you're not listening to. What about the developer who's on the other side, who's all these, the lawsuits? Not from the city. So we're supposed to listen for that person, but not listen to somebody who's from the city, who's born and raised in the city. Talked about paid consultants, that the cities, us council people are listening to paid consultants. I would beg the difference. Most everybody who's against this project, who's been talking about this, is a paid consultant for a particular New York City developer. So when it comes down to it, it's Fair Street, we're not giving away partial abandonment or easement. We've known that from the get-go. Pedestrian parking spaces that we can't afford, and apartments, or if you want to say housing, real estate, commercial space, all is what the city and uptown people wanted for over 7 years ago. And we are listening to them. So as I know I've been talking for a while, I'm going to be for this project. I hope everybody else is for this project so that we can move forward. And as some people said, have closure. Bring back unity. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Michael Olivieri, and on deck is Carl Frankel.
Thank you, Madam President. We are here tonight to vote on the Fair Street extension, not the entirety of the Kingstonian project. I have done extensive research once I found out this vote will now be on my shoulders. I have asked several of my constituents their thoughts and feelings on the issue. Happily, I heard both sides of the argument, but one was the overwhelming majority. A few things I want to touch on. As one of my constituents stated, and she is a higher up in the Kingston School District, something is better than nothing. The school district has not collected taxes on this property for some time now. Around 20 years ago, Fair Street Extension was a one-way road. People made do and found alternative routes. Excluding last year when it was moved, there were no real complaints when every Saturday from March to December, we detoured when the farmer's market was open. It was a minor inconvenience and we made do. Since the prior garage was torn down, Every mayor and council has attempted to find a way to replace it, either through private development or public funding. Attempts to find state or federal funds to rebuild the parking garage were unsuccessful. I have heard several times the Kingstonians snuck in Fair Street. In an article from 2018, you see the visual, and I quote, "The space between the two buildings will be used for an open air pedestrian plaza." Maybe this is the place where the holiday tree or menorah gets placed. Maybe this is the place where historic tours get started. Transferring any city and taxpayer asset is not an easy decision and is something I take very seriously. I have accepted that there will always be people upset with the decisions I make. What makes it easier is the greater good effect. Who does this project help? It helps local business owners, it helps local business developers. It helps bring more housing across the financial spectrum. It brings retail jobs and employment for those looking. It brings opportunity, and opportunity is what you make of it. We were all elected to be the voice of our constituents. The residents of Ward 7 have made a definitive statement. They are overwhelmingly for the Kingstonian, and as their representative, my vote will be yes. It is time to move forward. It is time to look at the greater good for all of Kingston. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Carl Frankel, and then Michelle Hirsch is on deck.
Thank you, Madam President. When I was recruited to run for alderman in Ward 2, one of the main selling points was that I wouldn't have to deal with the Kingstonian. Well, you know what they say, life is what happens when you're making plans. Here I am, dealing with a Kingstonian. Deliberating on this matter has not been as challenging as I expected. It hasn't been a close call for me. I will be voting in favor of the partial abandonment of the Fair Street extension and by proxy in favor of the Kingstonian project. Considering the controversy that has surrounded the Kingstonian these past few years, I would be remiss if I failed to lay out my reasons for voting in favor. There are 6 reasons in all. The first is precedent. The project was approved before I joined the Common Council. The only reason I'm voting on it at all is because of non-substantive technical failings at the December 2021 public hearing that created the legal requirement of a do-over. If I were to vote to overturn the prior decision, I would be discounting all the hard work and deliberation that preceded my arrival on the council. Now, this doesn't obligate me to vote for the project. The fact that this matter has already been approved has definitely affected my deliberations, though. Perhaps because I'm trained as a lawyer, it's raised the prevailing standard of proof for me from preponderance of the evidence to the much more stringent one of beyond a reasonable doubt. New and compelling evidence would have had to emerge for me to vote to overturn the Common Council's 2021 decision. This hasn't happened. This brings me to my second reason, the weight of the evidence. I believe that the benefits of the Kingstonian far outweigh the negatives. It will provide an economic boost to Kingston. It will enhance the quality of life in Uptown Kingston, and by extension, all Kingston. It will help address, albeit modestly, our affordable housing crisis. It will have a solid green building stamp on it. Not great, but acceptable. While the legitimate concerns about the Kingstonian have been raised, I don't believe they rise individually or collectively to the level of being stoppers. To be clear, I share some of these concerns. The building could be greener, and I hope it will get there. I will advocate for it. The parking lot has been designed to address current mobility patterns. I want it to be appropriate for the transportation patterns of the future. I hope we can get there too. The Kingstonian isn't a perfect project, but it's a good one, and we mustn't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Third, there is the weight of the public comments, which have been massively in favor of partial abandonment and the Kingstonian. The people of Kingston want this project. Fourth, the Kingstonian is what the people in my ward want. I include in this group the Uptown Kingston business community, which is staunchly in favor of the Kingstonian. Although some Uptown business owners don't live in my ward, I view them all as my de facto constituents. Fifth, the consequences of saying no to the Kingstonian would not be neutral, they would be negative. If we were to say no to an esteemed community member like Brad Jordan coming to us with a plausible proposal, it would send out the message that ours is a city that is hardcore anti-development, and we would lose access to the professional developers we need to help us address our housing needs, including affordable housing. A no would not return us to the status quo. It would create a sinkhole beneath it. Finally, there is the source of much of the opposition: the funding, the rhetoric, the lawsuits. The billionaire Neil Bender has bought up multiple buildings in Uptown, and his behavior to date has demonstrated a deep indifference to the welfare of our city. It is he who is Kingston's big problem, not Brad Jordan or the Kingstonian. A vote against the Kingstonian would be a vote for Neil Bender. I just can't bring myself to do that. That being said, I very much hope Neil Bender will have a change of heart about how he stands in relation to our city. At any time, he can choose to be more community friendly. If that happens, I will be delighted to explore ways to create win-wins. Until that time, I cannot and will not support his positions. This is why this wasn't a close call for me. I had, so to speak, a caucus of six separate considerations that might have pushed me in one direction or another. If the vote, in quotes, had been 3-3 or 4-2, that would have made it a very difficult decision. But it was 6-0, unanimous. In closing, I want to address a few words to the people who continue to oppose the Kingstonian. I do this as a person with a 2 decades plus career in sustainability who has been fretting and grieving about climate change for longer than some of the people hearing these words have been alive. I was an early board member of what is now Sustainable Heads Hudson Valley. I led a sustainability discussion group on Wall Street about 2 decades ago. If you feel rage about our collective inability to take meaningful action against the gathering storm, believe me, I know how you feel. Now, this is only my opinion, and I want to stress that, only my opinion, but it seems to me that some of the hostility towards the Kingstonian has been a proxy for the rage that accompanies the helplessness we feel as we careen into a crisis that our political system seems unable to address. As I see it, the Kingstonian has become emblematic of indifference to the things that really matter, like the desperately urgent need for climate action and social justice. Just as the Fair Street extension is a proxy for the Kingstonian is a proxy for our scary times. If you are open to considering this possibility, and even if you're not, I invite you to channel your frustration and anger into constructive engagements that treat progressive people of conscience as allies, not opponents. We are with you in the foxhole. You just have to believe it. I am proud to vote in favor of the partial abandonment of Fair Street extension and look forward to the benefits that the Kingstonian will bring us. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Next up is Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch, please.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to state that tonight we are voting on the partial abandonment of the Fair Street extension, not the Kingstonian project as a whole. Much of the public comment that we listened to at the public hearing on January 12th spoke to the project as a whole, and many people speaking did not speak to the partial abandonment of Fair Street extension. Each of the Common Council votes for the Kingstonian project have been undertaken on an issue by issue basis. We have been not tasked with voting in totality for the project. While the council did vote on a pilot over 1.5 years ago, I voted yes on the pilot based on information I had at the time, which included the inclusion of the affordable apartments. I do not see my vote binding me to vote in favor of the partial abandonment of Fair Street extension, and there are multiple reasons why I am voting no to the abandonment of Fair Street extension, even though I agree that our city needs to build more housing and multiple administrations have looked to rebuild a parking garage. The mayor has stated that this street will continue to appear on city maps, but I believe that we are dealing in an issue of semantics over what an abandonment or partial abandonment actually means. I have previously voted no on the easements for Fair Street extension, which essentially already closed Fair Street, and the city of Kingston has already filed those easements with the county. According to the New York State Department of Transportation Local Highway Inventory Manual, the Fair Street extension will be removed from a New York listing of more than 95,000 miles of public roadways that is referred to as the Local Highway Inventory, or LHI, whose primary purpose is to document administrative and physical roadway data that is used for a variety of public planning, funding, and legislative purposes at the local, state, and federal levels, which includes the city of Kingston's allocations on CHIPS funding, the money that we receive to pave our city streets. The manual states that public roads that are closed, discontinued, abandoned, vacated, decommissioned, demolished, or otherwise non-existent or impassable by a standard four-way passenger car are not included in the local highway inventory, regardless of municipal ownership status. Abandoned roads must be removed from the LHI with a municipal resolution. The process on how we have proceeded on this particular issue have been murky and confusing to both the public and the council, and the planning board is yet to sign off on the project. I have listened to my constituents and I've received calls from community members across the city regarding this issue. I've listened to public comment at our last hearing, and I heard a recurring theme of who speaks for Kingston and who gets to have a say on this street abandonment. Well, I just need to say that every resident in the city of Kingston, no matter how long they've lived here, is a resident of Kingston and entitled to a say as to what they would like to see happen regarding their street. The street belongs to the people, whether they are a renter, a homeowner, or unfortunately even a homeless resident, and I will be a no vote. Thank you.
Alderman Rennie Scott Childress.
Thank you, President Shaw. One of the earliest, most influential Supreme Court decisions in the early 19th century, the Charles River Bridge case, established the concept in American law of creative destruction. What that really means is that sometimes we face difficult decisions. And this has been, in a lot of ways, a difficult decision relating to the Kingstonian all the way down the line, partly because it's a large project. Complicated project, as Carl pointed out, maybe not the most fabulous one in the whole world, but it's a good one. There are all kinds of ways that it's good. And that speaks specifically to the issue before us tonight, and that is altering Fair Street from one public use to another public use. The current public use is as a minor artery from the plaza area up into Uptown. And it will continue. The key point here is it will continue to be a public place. But we're deciding that instead of the minor artery it is now, it will be a public plaza with all kinds of great uses for bringing the people of Kingston together. We've seen in lots of ways that people of Kingston love to come together. They love to celebrate July 4th. They love to celebrate the Children's Parade, Children's Day events. They love to be out there on New Year's Eve. And this plaza will provide a perfect place for those sorts of events to take place. I look forward to this transformation of the public use of the Fair Street Extension area from a street into a public plaza, a place where we can gather and be a community together. I will be in favor of this vote tonight. Thank you.
Anybody else on the question? Anybody else? Hearing no more discussion, I will call for the vote. If you could just again make your thumbs clear. All in favor? Opposed? Resolution is adopted 7-2. The two no votes are Alderwoman Michelle Hirsch and Alderwoman Naima Mohammed. Moving to resolution 30, but we do need to have a motion here. Tony Davis.
Thank you, Madam President. And I motion to suspend the rules to allow the council to vote on resolution number 30.
There's a motion to suspend the rules. This is a clerical error that happened last month. Second by Steve Shavit. All in favor to suspend the rules? Opposed? Okay, we are officially in suspension of the rules. We do just need to make that correction. Elise, I think you actually already did, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, there was a mix up with the number on the committee report and the number on the resolution. So when DPW went to put up the handicap sign, it caused some issues. So the resolution has been fixed. So we're just bringing this back. So we are suspending the rules, but now we will actually vote on resolution number 30. So Lisa, can you please read it?
Resolution 30 of 2022. Resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston, New York, amending Resolution 17 of 2022 to include the correct placement of a handicap parking sign on German Street.
On the question? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? I don't see Steve Shabbat, you're frozen. I can't see his vote, so I'm going to, do I have to call this a no vote, Barbara?
Not under the rules, it will simply not be a counted vote.
All right, resolution is adopted 8-0. We lost Steve Shabbat due to technical difficulties, but resolution is adopted 8-0. That concludes our communications. Before we conclude, I would like to, Tony, you want to go first?
No, go on, Madam President.
Thank you. I'd like to close in memory of a friend of mine, Kevin Archibald, who passed away of cancer a couple weeks ago. Kingston resident, originally from Denver. We met through the music world. He was a fantastic theater guru, actor, dancer, director. He was not just a triple threat, he was a quadruple threat with his acting. He was the artistic director at Rhinebeck Performing Arts Center, and just a dear friend who we met professionally. And then he got in a relationship with a good friend of mine, also a Kingston resident, and they got married a couple years ago. And Kevin's just one of those guys that just made everybody feel welcomed. And he's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person who's only 44 years old. And he will be dearly missed by me, his family here, his adopted musical theater family here in Kingston and back home in Denver. And I definitely want to send my condolences to his husband, Randy, who it's a tragedy. So thank you. Tony?
Yes, I like in closing. Usually Steve Shabbat has a lot, and it seems like I don't know, in the last couple of weeks, I had several here, so just bear with me. I'm just going to order that they passed away, and would like to close the meeting in honor of William and Spencer, also known as Manny, and Spencer, who passed away on January 10th, 2022. And Manny was a graduate of Kingston High School in 1981, attended Ulster Community College, again known as Man or Manny. Grew up in the neighborhood where I grew up in my teenage years. And, you know, Manny was always a presence there with all his big muscles and his big arms. And he leaves them more, and his wife, Teresa Spencer, his sisters, Michelle Clark, and Indy DeGroat, Mia Spencer, LaShawn Spencer, Marcia Eckerd, Nakia Yindo and Ellen Taylor, brothers Jan Spencer, Frankie Parker, Arthur Taylor, William Taylor Jr., LaKara Taylor, Mia Taylor, and Chauncey and Gerard, and several other and family members. So, and then the next one, and close to home, and my wife Ginger's, our Aunt Bunny, as we were called, Dolores Mewburn, and originally a Cathcart. So my aunt and my father-in-law's sister, she passed away on January 14th. And she was born in Glasgow, New York, and to the late George Cathcart and Esther Watson. And she worked here at MetLife for a long time. And then when she relocated to Brooklyn, New York, she worked for the New York State Board of Education. And she lives to cherish her husband and Walter Mewborn, sons Gregory Mewborn and Dennis Harris, daughter Zandra Mewborn, and daughter-in-laws Yvonne and Harris, grandsons Terrell and Colby Mewborn, and granddaughter Tyra Mewborn. And again, of course, brothers George Cathcart, my father-in-law Will Cathcart, Larry Cathcart, all of Kingston, our Aunt Dorothy Broadhead, Aunt Dot of Kingston, and several sister-in-laws and brother-in-laws. And so Ann Bunny's going to be missed. And the next one is a friend of mine's, Ralph Gasson, who passed away at the age of 51, or too early. And, so when you start seeing these people my age, starts to seek in. And as a minister at my Aunt Bunny's funeral in Brooklyn stated, and we're in the third quarter. You got 4 quarters, he said, life, and you get to that 55, 60 age, you're in the third quarter. And so I'm in the third quarter. And so Ralph Gasson died on January 23rd, 2022. He wasn't from Kingston in New York, and I had a chance along with my Eddie Parker, Brian Timbrook, and Michael Gray, Ruben and Lindo to play football after our college years, to play in an adult and football league with Ralph and his brother Danny. And we had a lot of laughs and travels, and so going to be greatly missed. And the next one is Dell Lewis, who just passed away on January 29th, 2022. Again, the person I grew up with. And he's the son of the late Harriet Jones. Dell was previously employed by the city of Kingston, Department of Public Works. He survived his longtime companion, Joan Nash, a son, Anthony Lewis, and Aretha Mapes, a grandchildren, Dante and Trey, and siblings, Jacqueline Timbrook, as I call him, Mrs. Timbrook, Gwen Jones, Grant Weaver, Harold Jones, Maceo Jones, Keith Jones, former alderman, and his wife, Patricia, and Wayne Lewis, Manny Steele, and his wife, Melissa, who Manny worked for the Department of Public Works as well, and a host of nieces and nephews. And then the last one I want to close with, and again, a family member, Alonzo, and I knew him as Sweeky Knox, and Junior, 56. He died on Sunday, February 6th at home. And the son of the late Alfonso and Estelle Kifcart Knox. And Big Sweek attended Kingston High School. He loved sports. He was the life of a party. He loved to read, could always find a good series or movie to watch. And Sweeky leaves behind his son, Alfonso Sweek, and Knox, sons Jeffrey and Andrew Bonesdale, or stepsons Jeffrey and Andrew Bonesdale, his sister and Tasha Knox, and Tamika Landaway and her husband Jesse, and a host of grandchildren and cousins, nieces, and nephews. So Sweet's going to be missed as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Anybody else? All right, hearing nothing else, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Rennie Scott Childress, second by Rita Worthington. All in favor of adjourning? Anybody opposed? We stand adjourned until March 1st, 2022 at 7:30 p.m. That, of course, makes our caucus February 28th. So please note that. Thank you all very much. Have a nice night.
Night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks for
Good night,
making this
all.
all happen,
Good night.
everybody.
Thank you.